Good to see everybody on this Thursday afternoon in the United Kingdom. But we're international again today. Destiny of the Doctor. What could happen? What should happen? What will happen? We'll discuss all theories, all ideas, and obviously because it's the think tank. Yeah, we were there before, Conrad. You join in, you share your ideas because obviously this not quite the eve of the reality war, but we're pretty close, aren't we? So much to resolve in that reality war. So we will be looking at. I'm expecting there needs to be a Susan denouement. I mean, obviously she's been mentioned, so why is suddenly she appearing? Omega, even though he hasn't even arrived yet, needs to be resolved. Rogue needs to be sorted out. Is he appearing again? I mean, what's his role in this? The Doctor's temper and anger management needs to be dealt with because it's been raised. So I assume something's going to be done. The bi-generation's going to be explained. The Rani's plot has to be foiled. Poppy, the baby, needs to be explained. The Gods of Ragnarok, or those three meta fans from Lux, need to be. I think there's a little bit more. Mrs. Flood's arc needs to finish. The Belinda arc needs to be wrapped up. Wasn't supposed to get her home. Possibly the 15th Doctor arc needs to be sorted out. The return of Gallifrey. The Master on Missy returning. The Timeless Children rectified. London and the world sorted out again in the reset. The Fugitive Doctor explained. The Conrad story explained and finished. And please tell me, how did the TARDIS doors blow inwards in the Interstellar Song Contest? And we haven't had it explained yet, so I'm expecting that as well. I've got my list. And how has the Rani managed to link everything to the Vindicator? Because it was the Doctor who came up with the Vindicator. And why was the TARDIS blocked from getting to May 24th? I've only got a few things that RTD needs to resolve in his 1 hour show. That's it. So let's get the lads on. It's a Texas special, a Lone Star special. So let's get Divine and Dragon on. Hello.
Howdy, howdy.
Yeah, you're one part of this partnership from Texas. You're in Dallas.
Yes.
But in Houston, as I would say, we have, of course, Cliff.
Hello again. Howdy. I guess I'm obligated.
Howdy.
Well, yeah, go for the stereotype. That's it.
We don't actually say that much in Texas.
So, everybody, good to see you. Destiny of the Doctor. There's a lot to talk about. We're fans. We're passionate. We've got things we want resolving. I've only got a short list. I've written shorter Christmas lists, I think. But anyway,
just that, huh?
Just that. But I'm being fair. All those are relevant because he's raised them this year. In only 7 episodes, all those issues need resolving. So, I suppose we better get going. There's plenty to discuss. So, of course, the first thing to discuss is what we think just about certainly, definitely will happen. And so let's go for Who do we know when it's random? Okay, now I understand my volume might be a little bit low. We've got to be careful we don't go too high, otherwise it might blast everyone to death. So please tell me as we go. But I will continue. So what will happen in this? So of course the first thing is it's the reality war, episode 8 of 8. Now, the first thing I saw, lads, is this one. These are the possibilities. Which one are you going to go for? The Doctor didn't die. He's actually gone. 16 is who? 15 is dead, and we don't even get to know who's 16, or 15 is bi-generated. Which version do you think we're going to get on Saturday? I'll go through them again just while you're thinking. I'll give you thinking time. So, 15th Doctor continues. The rumours are on. He's gone. No, he's gone. Oh gosh, is 16 Billy Piper? Is 16 Saran Jones? You know, all the rumours. I've got them for later again. 15 is dead, and we don't even get to know who's 16, open-ended regeneration. Or 15 bi-generates, you know, all that mush with David Tennant. Which version are you going for, Christian?
I'm going to say that the Doctor is gone, but we won't see the outcome on the other side. There could be a bi-generation if there's another episode following this one. They actually go with another series. But if there's not, I'm going to assume that it's open ended, and it will be up to successors to determine whether there's a bi-generation or a regeneration or a fusion of the Doctors. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. What about you, Cliff? What are you thinking is your betting?
I don't know. After the first episode this last time around, I'm clueless. However, what I'll go with what I hope happens, what I hope it all is, and I think that the resolution will be centered around the biology of whatever the bi-generation was. I think it's in my head. In my head, I'm hoping it's something that the Ronnie's done. So when they unravel everything and fix what the Ronnie, defeat the Ronnie, which is we good guys defeat the bad guys, that it ends up being a reset. So there's no more bi-generation, but it adds a new series of regenerations, and the future of the Doctor goes on. And that'll be the question mark that we end on, is a regular regeneration out of whatever she's done, the biological energies that she's been messing with for her experiment.
So
I'm hoping that he has realized, in other words, that he's realized his mistake, and he goes back to fix.
This is the opening gambit. Obviously, there's a section when I'll look at this in detail. So for those of you, I'm not going to go into detail here, but obviously there's your betting straight away. What we're going to get one of these versions on Saturday. He doesn't die. Season 3 is a possibility with Ncuti. Or no, he's gone. Or, oh my God, as people are saying, like Anthony Parkinson, I want it to be Billy Piper. I'll for one say I don't. I don't. Julie Coonan, 15 is dead and we don't even get to know. That would be good and make some kind of sense. So probably not what will happen on Saturday, right? Yes, I know. That's the other thing, isn't it? What will happen? Anyway, I'm going to just keep my powder dry because, to be quite honest, it's going to unfurl as we talk this afternoon. So, yes, it's going to maybe be one of them. Next thing is, because of course the whole story in the poster was get her home. That was the very uninspiring season arc question, get her home. Will he get her home? And does anyone care? But of course, the Ncuti angle has been bothering us regarding the media news and all the rest of it. And of course, there was news in various places about the Doctor Who finale having a surprise regeneration. I don't know why it's called a surprise regeneration when we're all talking about it, but there you go. Um, whether they're hoping that you see somebody and you didn't realize, or whether I think if there's a regeneration, you won't see the other person because there's no way that would have been kept as a secret. I think it will be kept open, as it quite rightly should be. I've got theories, and I'll show them later tonight on what people think will happen and how it dovetails with Geordie and various things. But a surprise regeneration, as we've just started to be saying there. Of course, the other issue linked with that is that is Ncuti going? Because if he's going, then the regeneration is definitely on, isn't it? As the Sun said, Axe Doctor Who star reveals new job after BBC's show exit. And he showed on Instagram, he displayed the poster for Hollywood movies in, but it's the roses. It's not exactly. I don't think he's got a very big part in it. I think I've got it here. There it is. You see him there at the front bar of the cake. And yes, he's also playing a playwright in London's West End. But of course, he also broke his silence after all those rumors about him being axed. He went on social media, but all he said was how great Archie Panjabi is as the Rani, gushing about what a great villain. He didn't exactly come out of his shell and say, by the way, I'm not leaving. So we're no further forward. It is still a mystery, lads. But as you said, you know what you reckon might happen. So we'll move on to the next little bit, which is I really want this anger management thing to be resolved and his temper tantrums this series, because we really have seen some strange material of our Doctor, and I did do a thread on that, as you know, earlier. The other question, though, of course, is RTD. Is he leaving? And of course, as fans, we've all heard, and just because he's got a Channel 4 drama doesn't mean he's leaving. If there's a hiatus, he can go on and do another show and then come back, of course. Especially, Christian, if he's already written 2 series of Doctor Who, as he says, he can go and do this, do all that, come back.
Well, that's very easy to construct. Obviously, he's had now a full year since the last time he made an announcement that he was already compiling a 3rd and a 4th series. But he doesn't have to come back, and the BBC doesn't have to have him back. And therein lies, he wants to have open options. Obviously, he's dedicated to pushing his agenda, and he would probably come back if they said, hey, we're going to pay you, come on back, do some more. But if the BBC has to find other deep pockets to finance a production, those people are going to want to have a say in who the Doctor is and who the showrunner is. And if they feel that the numbers return that we're seeing right now is any indication, they're going to say, sorry, we're not going to invest in this if this is what you're going to bring to the table. At which point they let him go, and he waves his hand and says, hey, I've got some scripts here if you still want to use them. And they'll probably say, no, thanks, we're good. We're going to go with someone else.
Right.
But this is what I don't get, Cliff. He has been so public with, I've written almost 2 seasons of Doctor Who beyond this one, that for him to say that so publicly and loudly, he can only end up with, let's face it, egg on his face if he is leaving.
Well, I mean, that's just lending, to me, it lends to his credibility as a fanboy more than it does to his credibility as a professional. I wrote dozens of great stories, I thought, in my head, right? He's had the benefit of being involved since 2005. He's got the blessing of the BBC. You talk about it, the agenda process. They're on the same platform, right? They're in the same mindset for what should be on television, what should be televised stories. I think the bigger problem is going to be just as Dragon said. It's investors. It's looking at these abysmal ratings and trying to justify that you've been at the helm of this ship. So why should we trust you with this brand? And hopefully somebody at BBC is getting this a little bit and getting there with it, because ultimately it's not his brand. It's the BBC's brand and legacy, and the British culture's brand and legacy. And if somebody's driving it into the dirt, then you just, invite them to see the door.
But you see, he's started New Who and he's now bookending it. I mean, he's got a third of Doctor Who captured. But I've got my criticisms and observations of RTD, and he has some of them here. So whether he's leaving or not, I can see justifications. There's no male energy in the show. Wafer-thin plots serving as a platform for an agenda. Resorting to fantasy and magic means you've given up on trying. Copycat stories. Russell T Davies is a writer past his prime. Ruby Sunday is a television character. Mavity references. Magic gloves. Is this Harry Potter or James Bond? Current producers are dismissing 80s Who as entertainment pastiche. Is this any better? Timeless Child is apparently still living on, although I will throw you some theories tonight where he has actually got this master plan to finish it off. There's no jeopardy in the narratives. I mean, he's fallen off a cliff at the moment, but wow. So I've got my criticisms, and I'm sure there's an awful lot of people who would maybe agree on that. And of course, I've been fair up to the specials. I made this a while back. I can't add them all on the extra ones. You've seen my reviews since. But these are the stories written by RTD in New Who. And I've rag rated it. And of course, green are the ones I like. It's a personal choice. Amber, yeah, there are, bit better. But, and all the ones in pink, really, that light pink, are just kind of, yeah, they're there. Red are, I think red are actually my really good ones. I apologise, I've got it the wrong way around. trying to think what I've got down there. I think this was the review with them actually I was doing. But do they kind of link up with some of my criticisms, yours, or am I being too unfair?
No, this matches my virtually item for item the same problems that I have with what we've witnessed. And the problem, let's say the strength of RTD when he came back is he effectively found a way to regalvanize it for the audience in 2005. That worked. But I think he was given total free reign when he came back the second time to push agenda almost exclusively to the detriment of the show itself. And therein lay the problem. He could sprinkle a few elements of identity politics or referencing in his first run, but it was just a sprinkling here and there, a comment. Oh, I have my same-sex companion here or at home. Okay, that was one comment, one story, you're done. You go on. Now it's let's see if we can hit the audience with a sledgehammer and drive home the point even more heavily and blatantly than I did then, and no one's going to stop me. They're too afraid to stop me because I am God in this iteration of the show. Not a good place to start from, not creatively, not as a custodian.
But I will I will try and be objective. These are my criticisms, but what I just want to add as a caveat before I come to Cliff is as we go through to tonight, there's certain theories out there, and actually some of them are from RTD interviews where he is saying, actually, I have woven all this together, and it's almost like he's got a master plan to deal with the timeless children, to deal with the uh, that little girl at the portal, and various other things, flux the lot. So basically, I'm just putting that in there, Cliff, that
No,
even Mavity is all part of his master plan.
I think Mavity is something that the Ronnie will say, yes, I've done all this, and that was just a typo. Um, but I do agree. I do think that he has a master plan. I don't disagree with that. I think that he has shown that he can pull it off. Here's where it all goes off the rails to me. Bad Wolf went on from the onset of 2005. We had the Bad Wolf seeded all the way through until we got the payoff of that. And what that's done to Russell is it's that fire stoking underneath the kettle full of his ego. And so there's this I've done it these many times. I can pull it off again. And so he's increasingly inflated his own um, expectations of what he can pull off. That's why these are getting so much more complicated without any actual narrative process to get us to the end result. It just becomes a big info dump in the last episode for one of the characters to tell us what we meant by all that.
Well, to just follow up, the problem is this time he's going what I call full meta. And when you go full meta, you lose the stakes. There have to be stakes involved. And if the whole point of going off on this tangent is a reset button that brings everything back to just the way it was, that sends the signal to the audience that there are no stakes. That's not necessarily an entirely good linear plot
Now,
line to develop. It's kind of like Bobby Ewing coming out of the shower.
yeah.
It,
Right.
Now I
The
wonder.
reality war thing being what it is, it should have been telegraphed. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all these things he catches on and says, well, something's not right with the fabric of space and time. Then at the beginning of this, that can be, I can't get you home. It's not a matter of I'm going to try something else to get you home. What he should have said is there's something wrong with reality. Something is not working. And then you have the danger of that ripping the universe apart or whatever it is, so that this all
and
culminates
that's why
properly.
and that's why I've said there are so many questions, and they'll have to be well, I say they'll have to be satisfactorily dealt with. There's no reason why he has to do it. Nomadina's here. Any credence to the rumors Georgie will show up? You stick around for the next hour, and I will show you the theories and the master plan behind that rumor, and how it might actually be interesting. Um, So yeah, this is the transcript. We had trailers, but I will remind you there were trailers to this season, of course. Um, there are forces beyond this universe. We think we are so clever, but we're like children. And when these vast creatures look down upon us, our entire reality is in danger. We are meant to voyage out there and own it. It's all a game to them, but the games are deadly. Now I'm showing you that one, and then a second one to see if there's something we haven't seen yet. Okay, everybody. So that's one of them. Okay. And then there was this. Okay. I'm the last of the Time Lords from another planet. I'm a developed life form, and I've waited a long time for your arrival. This is a time machine. We can go to wherever. Uh, can't fix your box, says Belinda. Ever heard of planet Earth? Never. My parents are still on Earth. Are they safe? I think we're becoming cartoon characters. I'm flat on this narrow neck. I will not let you down. Nothing fits here. Our entire reality is in danger. I promised that I would look after you. You can't promise that. Oh, yes, I will promise. Is there anything in any of the lines? I'll just show the other one again, where you're going, we haven't seen that bit play out yet.
Mm-mm. It hasn't played out yet. And he's waiting, obviously, to the reality war to have it play out. Although he did do the bit of meta in the conversation in Lux, where he was kind of exploring unreality as animated characters. I don't know. This is the seeds that we need to witness that help set the stage that a very astute fan or creative writer would pick on very quickly have not been effectively placed in my estimation, other than the fourth wall breaking where the Mrs. Flood or even Gatwa himself comments to the camera. I'm sorry, it's just not there.
Yeah.
Well, that's where it tied into me initially. My thoughts were that it had something to do with the toy maker and a return of the toy maker. Then when the Ronnie got pulled into it and she's after someone who has power, which is uncharacteristic Ronnie, but put that aside. Now I think that the end result is she's trying to get something from Omega. I mean, I'm sorry. Then she can control this Time Lord power. I think that the games, this whole scenario, it could be something either that she's harnessed the Matrix to do this, or she's harnessed his, battlefield from Five Doctors. But
let's have
I
a
don't.
look at.
It's still too unconnected. Like you said.
Right, well, let's have a look at a few of the things that are getting thrown at us. Farsight, he didn't need to waste 2 seasons to fix all this stuff. All he had to do was say it was a false Matrix projection. He's going to solidify the Timeless Children as canon and tie it into other stuff. In other words, make it worse. I mean, the Doctor Who movie, which, I think it was 29 years ago, just the other day's anniversary, and we don't mention the half human thing. You just kind of just give it a kind of flick, don't we? But instead, if you affirm it, Paul Holgate and all the other companions' cameos, it would have made for a nice ending to everything. Then Weaselface has to turn up and ruin it. I mean, yeah, there's an awful lot of ideas out there. I thought I'd remind you of the transcripts. Now, here's a new shot. This is from the reality war. This is starting to do the rounds. And this is when I think we get a bit tasty. Because, okay, there's no jeopardy. They're having a laugh. He's back to his nightclubbing days again. It seems to be that's the only place he wants to be quite blooming frank about this. So, we've got this shot. So, everybody just take a look at it. In the middle of the Omegas coming back, the Rani bi-generation, the battle, and what Mrs. Flood does, Conrad Clark, all the Armageddon, and then suddenly we've got a shot from a nightclub. Now, everybody is assuming it's the end. Doesn't have to be, of course, does it? Because they've released the shot. It was in one of the German adverts this week. The Germans are really good at showing stuff that we don't get here. Aye, like that spider blowing up. Now, so is this a giveaway, or is this like an implanted thought, like the character could be saying, if only I could have a nice normal life. So there's a few possibilities, but lads, I'm not here just to kind of play games. I will show you that there was a German transcript. And the German transcript says da ba dee ba dee ba dee, but underneath it says old enemies unite to trap the Doctor and Belinda upon their homecoming. Now, somebody could say, well, that's the Rani, but only the Rani. It is old enemies, and you can't say Rani and Mrs. Flood are old enemies. It's the one person. Are they meaning the Rani and Omega? But Omega's been, if he does appear, he's got kind of been woken up or released from somewhere else. Or do they mean the rumour that the Daleks are back at the very end to kidnap him, which I will discuss a bit later on? They're dancing. He's just bought her a pint, and then all of a sudden, they appear.
No, I think that hits the nail on the head. The whole rumor idea that the Daleks would capture the Doctor. There was a variety of ways the resolution of this episode could have been, up to and including the fact that it had a quote happy ending, that he's gone back to his nightclubbing days, which is where he wants to be, and Belinda's been brought home and is celebrating with him at one of these venues. But then they had to make a change at the last minute, saying, okay, Gatwa's not coming back. We've got to prep the stage for a shift. What are we going to do? Okay, let's have Gatwa come back and reshoot a generation scene. So the Daleks injure him, and so the idea is it's a quote mortal wound, and he retreats to the TARDIS to recover. But we don't see the other side of this, and it leaves it open. Okay, he's not necessarily going to regenerate. Maybe they can coax him back for another run, or we can go with another Doctor or another venue. But we see a Dalek emerge from the shadows, having mortally wounded him, and so we know that they are a part of this. But we don't get any kind of a resolution. It's an attempt at a cliffhanger.
There is another possibility, Cliff, which I've heard, that you're seeing a shot here, which is the end of the Doctor Who episode, but it doesn't make any sense because it tricks us to show that he doesn't regenerate. Do you know what I mean? We go, oh, for those who want Ncuti to stay. But actually, it's part of a narrative, which is that the bi-generation gets explained, that one of the two people can't regenerate. So basically, if Ncuti's Doctor realizes that the David Tennant 14th Doctor can't regenerate, he might actually do that great self-sacrifice and go back and allow the David Tennant Doctor to continue while he just gets on with a nice mortal life with her in that nightclub. That's the other version, Cliff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of part of what I have in my idea, is that it ends up being a situation where everything that the Ronnie has planned for this reality that she's created, whether this experiment, this petri dish of 5 generations, gets spread out, and it can result in a new life for a new Doctor, but then he can get to choose to stay here. I don't think that's what this is. I think this is just another of the time wasting scenes that Russell seems to want to throw in. Look, they're having a time, and it'll take 10 minutes of the episode, and then it won't be explained. And well, gosh, he sure was happy, but that's all destroyed by all this negative stuff that's happening the rest of the episode. I tend to think that this is one of those, an alternate version of the domestic bliss we saw in the last episode with the house and the baby and things like that. This is an alternate version of them, is what my take would be.
Right, so we've got that. So just to remind everybody, if you haven't seen this, so the German transcript says old enemies unite to trap the Doctor and Belinda upon their homecoming. Now, interesting to have it, and it says Happy May Day, which the other theory is it takes us back to the beginning of the 15th Doctor's era, when we first saw him nightclubbing. Now, there may be some interesting pathos getting set up here that he we see the beginning of the 15th Doctor in a nightclub and we see the end of the 15th Doctor in a nightclub. There is a possibility, but he still also kind of regenerates. Now you're going, no, Brendan, you can't have both. He's there. You've just shown me a picture of him being happy and you've just given me the theory. So how can he regenerate? Well, actually, he can't. He dies. But there is a theory that he. Now, I'm going to save this next bit. Wait, you're going to have to stay a bit longer. But yes, there's a bookend theory going on here because he does like this nightclub in Lark. But I will explain the next bit a little bit later. But the other bit, lads, is this must be explained away in the reality war. Why he tortured Kid. That has to be explained. Because remember, he said he'd lost it and he said to Belinda, oh, I was scared myself. Now, that bit of dialogue thrown into our 8-part season, I'm sorry, but that has to have a payoff.
Well, the only way it can be a payoff is the acknowledgement that having bi-generated, he's lost some of his inhibitions. So we all have certain inhibitions that prevent us from acting impulsively and overtly. And it's an understanding that one of the weaknesses of bi-generation is that you lose those inhibitions, and the bi-generational process will be determined to be unsuccessful by the Rani because you can't lose control. If the Rani herself continued to bi-generate, you've got a problem with the process itself.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that assessment. That it's basically this caption here is kind of on the nose. It's hitting it right there. That this isn't the Doctor. The Doctor was really who he was in order to have a regeneration, not a bi-generation. That's a product of whatever the Ronnie's done, and it's kind of unhinged part of his personality, his element, his core being, and he's got to get back to that. Now, whether that's giving Russell too much credit once more, and that he's had this plan all along, and he'll reunite 10, 14, and whatever, however many numbers we're on now.
Well, Cliff,
And that reunification of the Doctor will result in another regeneration, another splintering, and the bi-generation was all the Ronnie's, toying around with things. I still go back to the fact that all this regeneration stuff was supposed to be connected to Gallifrey, which may be the only reason why Omega's coming back. I don't know. It's too.
Well, I think Omega's going to be the glue. Unfortunately, I think that Omega's going to be the glue to solve Timeless Children, Gallifrey, everything. But anyway, we'll park that because Omega's coming, folks. We've got Omega coming as well. But here, my finishing thought on this is to write such a scene that does upset people, and you're going, that's not my Doctor. The payoff that I think would be satisfactory is if the theory that once he realizes he doesn't like what he's turning into, and he realizes that the bi-generation means one of the two can't regenerate, he then goes, right, well, it's not me who's going to continue because I'm a bad Doctor, and he allows the other person to continue. And that would have payoff. That would make sense. So that's where I'm going with that one for now.
I think it's worse.
Now,
I think it's worse. I think the
the
reunification will be all of them. All the remaining Time Lords, the Ronnie, the Doctor, all of them, all coming together to create a trans Doctor.
Well, I'll show you the version that people are saying in our next section that comes up. Anyway, you've got the Omega apparently arriving. You see, there's still teasing us in the trail about him arriving. I mean, if he doesn't arrive on time, the episode will be over. Does anyone know? Does he talk? Does he have a clock? He's a Time Lord. With his body, I can construct. This is the Rani's voice. With his body, I can construct a new Gallifrey, she says. So, the renegade Time Lord wants to bring back Gallifrey. I mean, exactly, just what you'd want when you're in exile. And then I swear I will stop you. And there's what I always think it's a bony version of an AT-AT from Empire Strikes Back. and then you've got my battle is in that box, and I think the photograph is meant to make us think that the baby's in the box, but I actually think that in the box is either the Master or Omega or Widow Twanky or the Crankies, or I mean, honestly, or is it Deal or No Deal? Or is it only £1? I don't know. It gets ridiculous. But we had this with the Genesis arc, and it just peeves me off. So there was the trailer, and of course, people are saying, "Well, Omega is back," as in we've heard he's back. I wonder if he's going to be teased. And I've made, I saw this on Twitter, people making up as if he's in the memory TARDIS, and you can see the two versions of Omega. Now, you saw me the other day, and I'm sure you've seen the leaks of the photographs. So, Omega, of course, that's how we're used to him. Well, that's the version that's been kind of leaked. Now, I see versions where people are saying that's not Omega, but let's enjoy for a moment the shots of what people are saying. The lads the other night on Children of Time just said he seems to be like a glorified testicle, but I don't know. But the more I look at it though, if that was Omega, I could actually, I could live with that. And the reason why is you didn't see him in the Three Doctors anyway. I don't know why he's got claws, put it that way. But if this was true, I could buy into the argument that he's living in this strange underworld or something, hell. Mind you, he's there with Rogue. So anyway, what do you reckon? You've all seen it, I'm sure. But what do you reckon to this kind of leak?
Well, it's not uncommon for RTD to change the appearance of a classic character. He's done it before. He'll do it again. So this would not surprise me. The question is, what is the function of Omega coming back, and how will Omega and thus the Ronnie be defeated in the process? I get the impression that since he was cardinal in the creation of the Time Lords in the first place, that the Ronnie assumes that he will be critical in recreating the council. But obviously this won't pan out. Now, will he co-opt the body of Rogue, for example, which is why Rogue was used in the preceding episode? Don't know. But it doesn't sell itself to me. I guess I've lost faith in an effective payoff by RTD in using this classic character. What do you think, Cliff?
I think it. If this is what if the rumors are that this is Omega, then there's a special kind of crack that's filtering into the Bad Wolf Studios that he's smoking, because the threat, the villainous qualities of Omega are because he's just another one of the Doctor's race. He's another Time Lord. He's a Gallifreyan. He's a person, right? Historical or otherwise. Plus, he was shattered into antimatter. Never mind all that bit. This physicality of Omega makes zero sense. Why would he look this way? There's no reason. It looks like it's a combination. The best result, the best thing I can give it is it looks like a combination of what a Dalek might look like on the inside, of a Sontaran, of several other Who villains that maybe Omega has figured out a way to create a physical body instead of being trapped in antimatter. That's what he did in the Fifth Doctor story. It's escaping me right now.
The
created a way to go to get out of the antimatter and create a physical positive matter body.
The criticism some people have is that we had Sutek, who was a villain, a humanoid villain, turned into an animal. You have Omega, possibly turned into an animal. And it's like, what the hell are we doing with this? Anyway, we don't know if it's true or not, but it's interesting to talk about. However, this is a shot from next week's episode, and is it mysterious? Is it dodgy? What do you reckon? What the hell's is that? Just a blurred shot? What is that? Is that Susan? Is that creature that does the digits, the 9s and the 8s and the 6s?
Oh, we haven't even gotten into Susan resolving all that.
Yeah, that does look like one of the digital number crunchers that the Ronnie showed us in the last episode, just from the profile.
Because I'm trying to think, why do you still need those? I mean, I've seen photographs of more of them in the next episode, and you think, well, why do they need them? They were measuring the doubts of people, but if the world's getting destroyed, why? I mean, I think your doubts would go up once the world's getting destroyed. You're going 10, 10. But
Right.
there's
I
no
think
need to.
he may throw in something like block transfer computation and rewrite that too. And that's what all this is somehow these things are doing the calculations to keep this reality bubble together. I mean, I keep going back to what my speculations were up until the last episode actually aired, and all this other stuff, the other rumors, Omega, Daleks coming back. I don't think there'll be Daleks coming back. If there's Daleks back, it'll be in some other flash of this is who you really are, Doctor, and we'll see other beings that he's faced. But I really don't know where his headspace is at with these images I'm seeing.
Well, let me just show
I
you.
can't imagine.
Yeah, let me just show you more. There's plenty to discuss, so I'm going to be flying through. John Yulden, thank you. Benjamin Cook has apparently said it's not Omega, that shot. So could it be a gel guard? The claw would certainly fit with them, which used to be their weapon. Very true. So we might be getting tricks of the trade going on here, that we think we're onto something and it's close but not there. Right.
So it is possibly a testicle.
Yeah, yeah. There will be
Some
so
organic new creatures that we got.
Hold on. So we're moving on. There will be an explanation for the bi-generation, and Russell Davies said yes. Now, I didn't want a bi-generation in the first place, but I think it's important that we do have an explanation, because there must be a payoff for having had two so quickly. And I do like the idea, since we've got into this mess, that the bi-generation, he sees in the next episode on Saturday, he witnesses that Mrs. Flood cannot regenerate. And so she sacrifices herself, bit Missy style. She's the one who turns. We all guessed that, didn't we?
Yeah.
But she can't save herself by regenerating. It's just an amazing self-sacrifice. And he notices that. And he also doesn't like who he's turned into. So maybe the bi-generation shows us a payoff here, that, you know, that it gets us out of the shooty doctor, so to speak. So that will be interesting to see. But the bigger payoff is about the Rani and Gallifrey. And of course, he's been texting away, has our Russell T. Now, I find it fascinating how he shortcuts and minimizes and dilutes characters. So he does a big spiel about the Rani. I'm not going to read it all out, but he basically talks about the mark of the Rani, time in the Rani, and dimensions in time. So some people have been arguing that he is making that canon now, which I'm not for at all.
Well, that goes to my theory that was the same sort of scenario, right? Those doctors in that special were trapped in a bubble, a time eddy bubble or something, that they had to work themselves out of, and reality was at stake.
So we've got here, I took two big things from the past. This is what RTD says. I took two big things. She likes disguises. She rules planets. One other attribute, she's astonishingly murderous. Right, okay then. Well, let's just hope there's some murder, because we're not seeing much at the moment from our Rani. You know,
I'll even go back and check my discontinuity guide, but those two things don't apply to her. But
right,
far be it from me. That's not her character.
Well, that's why I said he dilutes them. He takes what he thinks are little kind of snippets or pinches of them. I'm thinking, that's not my big take on the Rani myself.
Mark, she wasn't ruling a planet at all. She wasn't murderous at all.
She was the queen of she
She was
mentions it.
experimenting. It was a science experiment to her.
Yeah, but
People die, so be it. They're no more than mice to her.
she said she was practically queen of Massimia Goria and ruled Lacertia like a tyrant. Lacertia, or whatever. I never get it right. Next one. Okay, so we've got the Rani, and there's two of them digit people. Oh, they're breeding now. So why? I mean, you'd make them unemployed because they're jobless. The world's ended, and we don't need anybody's doubts anymore. So this shot is kind of interesting because you're going, well, what, the world doesn't end, but you've just shown me all that blather. Anyway, so let's get to it. This is what a lot of us fans are worrying about or knowing is going to happen. And since Russell T Davies has just said in the Radio Times, well, but here we go, I'll explain to you. He says he's going to shake up Law of Gallifrey. Now, in a nutshell, he says the upcoming finale is a full circle moment for the latest era of the show, with the promise that he's been weaving in elements from across Ncuti's tenure. It's the show is wilder than it's ever been before, blah blah blah. This story is going to be epic and personal. It takes some unexpected turns. There are some big surprises from the Doctor and for the Doctor. Some of it shakes up the Time Lord Law of Gallifrey. Some of it recontextualizes the Doctor, the Rani, and their relationship. Now, I find all that quite intriguing because to recontextualize the Doctor, I think is the Timeless Children bit that's going to come up. That's the bit. And I will also show everybody soon, tonight, the theory that the fugitive Doctor is very linked with this.
No, that makes perfect sense if he's trying to somehow tie everything together. The question is, are you recontextualizing elements from just Gatwa's run? Are you going to include elements from the Chibnall era? Are you going to go back all the way to classic Who? And what we've learned from the resolution from the first year is that when he tries to recontextualize ideas, they don't pay off. Sutek having connected to the TARDIS and surviving all the various permutations, and then all he had to do was be dragged along through hyperspace via a leash, would destroy him. I'm sorry, that wasn't a payoff that resonated well because there were too many plot holes for it to be credible. I'm not sure if this is the direction RTD is going, that the payoff will be satisfying in any way, shape, or form to the viewers.
Well, the payoff, I will actually show you all the theories in the next section tonight, folks. So just so you can see, I'm not going to keep teasing with just quotes. I will show you, and you can take the theory you like or say what you dislike. But the bit that intrigues me, Cliff, is the full. I mean, to me, is the full circle, because that might mean Mavity, the Asian Isaac Newton, all those things, even Davros having legs, all those things could actually be explained away in a moment that is parked. Now, I would be happy with that, since we're where we are.
If you go back to the moment that Jodie regenerates into Tennant, it's a distortion of reality. The TARDIS gets brought to that zone, and it's like that's not right. Something's going on there, and he just appears, and there's no real rationalization for why the regeneration occurred. Why did it go back to a previous Doctor? That's why I kind of have the theory that that's the beginning of the bubble. We see a little bit of trail of that, and that's why Poppy is still in it now. I think that's where the trail begins, and it only starts to kind of pan out once they have the bi-generation. The very next thing that occurs is that feminine hand picks up the gold too.
Well,
so
I
think that's the start of the experiment.
I might have to. Well, with the theories I've collected tonight, I might have to reward you with getting that in there because Cliff. I will show you in about 15 minutes. I'll show you the theory that makes sense of all that. That actually we're going to go back possibly to the
Every time you say
Geordie regenerate.
every time you say
We're going to
theory,
go.
I just think I hear John Cleese and his the Brontosaurus theory.
It means we're going to go back to the Geordie regeneration, some people think. And that's why you can see him in a nightclub, not regenerating as Ncuti, and not going back to David Tennant either. You go back beyond. Anyway, we're going to get there. Marine Boy 1966. I've a terrible feeling he may double down on the Timeless Children stuff. Remember, he has said he won't change anything his mate does. No, he thinks he's going to possibly help us all out. Look, we are where we are, and an unexpected fire. He says, "I love Brendan's optimism, but I think RTD is about to blow things up." Unexpected fire. I am with you on this one. I'm just trying to think. Do you know what? If he can wave a magic wand and somehow pull this together, I'm for it. If it doesn't land, I'll be in the queue with an unexpected fire saying, "You little devil, why did you bother?"
Yeah,
Because
everybody in the thread probably needs to understand that I think we all three are agreeing that we're at the point where we're opening the fortune cookie, hoping there's $1,000 bill in there instead of a dopey fortune. But it's just blind
he's
optimism.
he's got to be very. The truth is, like I said, Timeless Children could have just been not mentioned ever again. But if he's going to actually reference it, it has to land, and it has to land brilliantly, because otherwise you've just affirmed it, acknowledged it, made it even more canon, and you've just given us 2 rubbish seasons of Doctor Who to make that point. So it better be good. But when he says he's dovetailed loads of things into the 2 seasons, you think, right, so you really have got a plan. It's just whether it's a master plan or just a plan. As he says here, elements from season 14's premiere, The Church on Ruby Road, are even paid off. It's rewarding for long-term fans. Oh boy, do we wish. But exciting for new viewers as well. And, well, apart from the nightclub bit, which obviously references Church on Ruby Road, because you know what he's like, the hyperbole he uses all the time. It could be the baby. We have a white baby in Wish World that they're holding and telling stories to. It's a white baby. The poppy baby might be something to do with Timeless Children. There's so much going on here. There's the white baby. Could that be something to do with, this payoff? Could that be I don't know. It just goes on and on and on. So you've got these ideas. These are from the reality war, where I've not seen Unit looking like this, where they look as though they're piloting it. He's still on his cliffhanger. She's got an Atari joystick. Takes me back to Space Invaders. I tell you what, don't give her a joystick. She's lethal with those bazookas. There you've got the bone dinosaurs, which, as you know, attack the unit headquarters in the trailer, because we all need a bit of sci-fi action. It's just that whether we need it really. Did we really need that Disney money?
Why are there even animated giant bone creatures? None of this, unless it has something to do with the biology and that angle. I can't even understand why all this in her bone castle, why it all ties together. That seems to me to be like the evocative of the center console of a TARDIS, right? The console room, that kind of thing, and maybe it's inverted. And that's how she's trapped them all.
Yeah. Well, they've been advertising like crazy in different ways, and maybe we've not seen something. Mum and Dad are out again. Mum and Dad dinner date. They've really been going mad on this Mum and Dad. So whether they get a happy ending, so to speak, which is that they are just 2 mortals. So there's that. Then, of course, there's blooming Susan. Does Susan appear? Or as one of the rumours said, she's a glass avatar, that she just appears in this kind of guise to remind him that he needs to pull back as the Doctor, therefore in the end he regenerates into somebody else. We also have, and a bit more of them advertising. Shooty, God, he just advertises in so many weird different ways. There's them directing in the episode. Rogue, is he going to get mentioned again? Is Rogue going to be key? Some people think Rogue is going to turn into Omega. Some are saying he is Omega. Um, just there's
Well, I
just
think
too
that even
much
that
to
little
get
clip
me
there
off.
lends to what you just said about it being bits, like Susan beckoning him back to his true self.
Yeah. What you have to do is ask yourself, is the appearance of characters like Rogue or Student germane to the movement of the plot, or is it purely relevant to the persona of a character, i.e., pull back, you need to remember who you are? If it doesn't actually serve the movement of the plot, then it's window dressing. It's a nice cameo, I'll grant you that, but it's not an effective use of the character.
Oh, it's blooming awful. Yeah. The other thing is, can I just say, this Bone Palace, this Bone Castle, whatever, he calls it the Bone Palace, but there you go. Okay, and that clock is going to link with time because we saw the shot from the trailer. But I have to say, it is only a New Who invention where we get all this nonsense in the finale where you get a dance sequence and she's got a mirror ball. When did the Rani, a scientist, decide that she needs a mirror ball in her palace while she's trying to bring Gallifrey back? I mean, honestly, you can imagine when Omega appears, he goes, "Oh gosh, have you got a jukebox?" Well, this is stupid. This is high camp. This is the stuff about New Who that has to be destroyed. You that
I can
dance
see it.
sequence.
I can see it connecting to those nightclub scenes. That this is still all the warping of reality that's going on, even inside this supposed citadel of the Ronnies. That she's messing with his head. But that's the only way I can rationalize. Like, why is there even a clock if they're in this made up timeless space or
And why
whatever?
did it need to
What
be?
purpose does the clock serve?
And why did it need to be midnight? And when the doctor was, if he didn't have doubts, she'd have gone past midnight and still been waiting for him. Um,
Right.
but yeah, so we've got all these shots, and of course we've got a lot of domesticity, which is a pain in the neck for us sci-fi fans. You know, whatever.
Well,
Get on with the plot.
well,
Vlinks, what a way! All the Disney money, Christian. And Vlinks, I can't see the point of Vlinks. I love the look of it, but what's the bloody point of it? He might as well be a car park attendant.
no, it's the way you're spending the money, and it's Disney window dressing. The series previously during the classic era was able to tell incredibly brilliant stories on a very small budget. It's like he said, "Oh, great, we've got some money to spend," but what he's doing is he's crafting some wonderful backdrops uh, without really having a relevance to the story itself. Kind of like that wonderful, expensive scene in Lagos with all the
Oh,
locals. Yeah, it was a wonderful little shot, but I'm sure it was expensive, but it didn't really serve the overarching narrative other than to set the stage.
well, it's interesting that New Who hate it. Well done. I haven't. Time and the Rani is not a story I watch a lot, but there is a glitter ball kind of thing in their kind of Lacertian city, and the killer bees come out of that. Interesting idea, I know. But you're good to call out. A Marine Boy question: if RTD manages to come up with a satisfactory, pleasing conclusion to the Gatwa years, will he be forgiven for all the crap it's taken to get there? Do you know what? It is a very interesting question because I'm going to have to ask that question myself on the hypothesis this might happen. Because is it really worth 2 years of Disney money, which we may not get again for season 3? 2 years of people watching this to actually give a satisfactory ending to an era that he started with all this joy.
It's
I
it's
think it's
the
a
it's
miss.
the
It's a waste
the
of
Doctor
time.
Who version. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just
The
think
Doctor
it's
Who version of the Bilbo riddle. What do I have in my pocket?
But it's highly indulgent to spend 2 years doing something just to Park an era. I just think no, 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 no. I think I'm answering my own question there now. But
I do
yes,
notice that on the previous picture, it's the seal of Gallifrey instead of the clock.
yes, it is. Well, there's a lot of different references there. And remember, those guards were also in the Interstellar Song Contest, so that's not been explained yet
Yeah,
either.
and I think the Vlinks is a alternate reality version of those calculators.
And we have to get Armageddon sorted out again. So whether Omega comes back and goes, "Go on, I'm in a good mood." I mean, honestly, you can't keep doing this. But anyway, we are going to. Anyway, there we go. There's his regeneration scene. It's just, um, and Conrad, you see, there's so many parts of the story that need sorting out. But this is the tasty bit, folks. When I have teased you a bit, this is what might happen. And this is when all the theories get thrown into the cupboard. Are you ready? Here we go. Okay, so this is the tasty area. So, first one is there's already 2 seasons primed and ready, and that's what we're going to get. Um, who's buying into that? In the thread, just say yes or no in this section. I've got the theories as well. It's not just going to be daft questions about the hiatus. So Doctor Who's next 2 series are already written despite Disney funding cuts, and we're just ready to go, and we'll do that in 2027. Right, who thinks that's going to happen? Yes or no? Christian?
I don't think it's going to continue. I think that once Disney pulled out, other potential partners will say, this is a dying brand. We're not going to waste our money, and it will continue to be shelved. The scripts may be there, but I don't think they're going to see the light of day.
Well, just look at our thread. Are we all naysayers? Look at us all. No, no, no. Mark Brown, Paul Mabley, Sonny Waffles, Paul Roach. Is this wish? It is wish world. Are we all wishing that it's not true? But sorry,
I kind
Sonny
of
says yes.
I kind of tend to think that with the Disney doubling down on Snow White and some of their other recent flops and fiascos, that they've I don't I'm of the opinion that I don't think it's the Disney money that's really affected the stories. I think it might have affected the special effects budgets and let them do more CG and things like that. But it's an alternate release platform, and that's the partnership that really is. That's the value of the partnership right there. Disney doesn't care whether it's on their platform or not, and if they cut the budget of it and it can still be on the Disney platform, I think that's where you might see Disney money go away. But I tend to think that it will continue because I really believe that they will not have learned their lesson. That they will still somehow think it's the fringe holders on to the legacy, the old stuff. Us old fans who are out and go touch grass, who have created. I mean, that's the narrative throughout a lot of these episodes anyway. That we're the problem. That they know best how to handle it, and so that'll be how it's left. It'll be whatever culmination of fiasco, and it'll continue.
So Thomas McCarthy here says the series has gone insane. The Doctor will turn out to be Susan, who's the Rani who by generated into the Master. Yeah, good bit of a good point there, which is basically it's just too much. I keep reminding people we might be passionate, die-hard Doctor Who fans, but we have to be winning an audience. And Bad Wolf said at the very beginning of this 2 season experiment, we want to go global. We want to reach into every kid's home. Well, if you do, you need to make sense and you need not to be pathetic. And so, Mickey, your point, sorry, Thomas McCarthy, your point is quite apt there because if this is a joining on point for a Doctor Who new fan, how? How? Um, Okay, then, here we go. This starts to get tasty now. You're going to really be triggered from now on, everybody, right? These are the theories that might happen according to leaks, fans, the lot. First off, Omega is going to be a metaphor for toxic masculinity, the usual crap that BBC throws at us. There will be an open ending with a time reset, basically for the next showrunner to freely take over, right? So who agrees or disagrees with that possibility?
I think that's a distinct possibility. Uh, the messaging is still a cardinal part of what the BBC and RTD in particular like to do. An open ending with a reset seems logical because, again, if they bring RTD back, if they want to continue on the same tangent, they can. But if they need to make a change, if there's a pivot, that's the moment to do it. And that may be how they wanted to wrap this up.
Now, just
Yeah,
before
I think
Cliff comes in, Joe Chapman, I have got your email, and you know I've been a little bit busy. I will get back to you. I promise I will. I just give me this weekend, Joe Chapman. Go on, Cliff.
I think that toxic masculinity could be one take. It could be any number of things that uh, uh, the general militant structure of unit and the militant overlord, kind of metaphor. So it's definitely going to be something along that DEI parameter. And then I'd agree that it'll be a fairly open ending. Um, has this been truly resolved? Wait to find out. So that's the most positive way they could wrap it up, is that they don't wrap it up. In the same way that he just said, that it's to let the next person decide, do we continue along the lines that we left with, or do we just totally take a right angle turn?
I would hate the fact that Omega, I liked in the Three Doctors. He does shout, but he's extremely frustrated. And I always remember the second and third Doctors feeling so sorry for him because, and his anger was quite right, because he set up the Time Lords. And, our way, he was shafted, basically. And so it was a well-written story because even though he was ranting and shouting like a dictator, you also felt sorry for him. And the Doctors played that well. Arc of Infinity, less so, although there was a moment where Hedin had sympathy for him, and the Fifth Doctor had a moment and felt bad how it was happening. I think it would get lost if now all we're going to do is have this wham bam thank you ma'am amazing appearance, and then we get some jibes about toxic masculinity because he's very shouty and threatening. No, that's talk about minimizing the Rani. That is minimizes Omega. That is not that he was a scientist as well. He was a great engineer. And to turn him into a toxic masculine, I'd be bloody toxic if I'd been shafted by my own people when I invented this thing for them. I would.
Left to decay in a universe of negative energy after being such a hero. Yeah, that was the whole pathos of the character to begin with.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
sort of the nature of it, pushing things into these templates nowadays. It doesn't have to make sense.
And if you're a Doctor Who fan, if you're going to bring Omega back, make him interesting and keep that pathos going. Don't turn him into a one-dimensional, bobber job villain. That is not the point. That means you're disrespecting your own Doctor Who canon. That just means you've dropped the ball and you're rubbish as a writer. So if that was true, I'd be bloody furious because that is not the point of Omega at all. And what a waste of bringing Omega back. What a waste of Susan. What a waste of the Rani. What a waste of the whole blooming series.
Well, I have to ask you, Brendan, to what degree have we seen RTD or Chibnall respect what has gone before? Can you say that there's been a lot of respect shown previously? Why should we expect respect going forward?
Well, and yes, and garbage. I know exactly. Can you imagine if Omega came back and we ended up saying, "Is he a man or is he a woman?" No, I'm non-binary. If you don't mind. I mean, honestly, I would just. Well, the telly would be destroyed, and it's a big telly. I mean, it would be a very expensive mistake. Okay, so open-ended, we all love that because I get the vibe with our thread and our panelists that we know where we stand with Doctor Who. We want an open ending. We want a second, third chance. Omega. Right. What about this one? The Doctor's daughter from Space Babies is the timeless child who the Doctor is forced to abandon to create a new timeline. She grows up to become another version of the Doctor, but is not the Doctor. It will be her own story leading to the renegade Doctor plot. So the fugitive Doctor comes from the timeless child, which is a relative of the Doctor, but not the Doctor. If look, we're in a mess now. This is all hocus pocus space opera mess. Do you know, lads? I'd buy this. I'd take it. If the fugitive Doctor was confirmed as not part of in between the second or the third and all that stuff, and wasn't before the first Doctor, and the timeless child is kind of sorted out, that's not quite the Doctor. Do you know what? I might buy it. I might buy it.
It's possible that this could work, but it's very convoluted. I'm not sure that it's going to be a readily accessible narrative to the general audience. A lot of people are going to say, sorry, this is nonsense to me.
Barely accessible to me.
I know you have to read everything. I don't know how many times. It's like going.
See, and I went a whole decade trying to figure out how the looms worked. This kind of approach is at a point where the new audience that they're trying to, like you said, this new audience that they've courted with the appearance of Ncuti as the Doctor, or Jodie as the Doctor, even, is going to be lost with all of this, and we're changing all of the lore that you didn't know about in the first place. They have no investment in it. They don't care. It's going to be the older viewers, the people who are trying to introduce this to their children, who are going to check out.
Yeah,
that's a whole nother.
We see that
50 years, 60 years of the show that they're potentially, with this kind of thinking.
This would be the risk that our showrunner's taken, possibly. Now, again, this is all possible. This is in my what might happen category. If this was true, he has just really done a very intricate, in some ways, 16 episode, 2 seasons to get to a point you could have got to a lot faster if you ignored this, that, and the other, and ignored the timeless child and just never went there again. And also sacrificed Doctor Who and entertainment for the sake of this timey-wimey nonsense. And that's what you're saying, Cliff, isn't it? It's just too intricate for a general viewer to go, what, why, where? And it hasn't, to me, it hasn't been that entertaining. It hasn't been really Doctor Who. And if we eventually get to the point where we can start having Doctor Who, I'm thinking, we've wasted years.
But also, who's the other baby? There's two. There's Poppy, and then there's the other baby that everybody's carrying around. They've got to resolve even those two situations.
I'm aware that white baby could be the Master reborn. He was a gold tooth. If you think about it, if he is a gold tooth, you've got a bit of DNA. Then you get that bit of DNA and it's a baby. Then it gets. I don't know. I'm trying to work out, and I know. Why would the Master be white? I've got to be careful nowadays. And what a mess all this is. But that's on the screen now, the Doctor's daughter from Space Babies, because as people are saying in the thread, we've got babies everywhere. There has to be a payoff. In my desperation, I would buy this theory and say, right, go on then. The timeless child is kind of a semi-shufty kind of kid of the Doctor. Right, fine, brilliant, bye. And that does also mean, is the timeless child the mother of Susan?
Well, that was something that I've heard bandied about, and I think I would not be surprised, because we're trying to find a relevance for Susan or her avatar to make an appearance of any kind. And we've never seen her parentage. It's never been referenced in the classic show, which means it's very fertile ground for RTD to profit from, for his narrative to say, Poppy will be somehow the progenitor of Susan, if not the Doctor himself. I'm not happy about that, because it feels again like it's a rewriting of history, but he has freely said he's doing a bit of rewriting of
Yep.
Gallifreyan lore.
Yeah. And so therefore, Timeless Children, therefore the Doctor element. That's obviously the shot from the church on Ruby Road when we had a baby being carried. I know that was Ruby, but that was the start of all this. Is that a nice payoff? Uh, Remember, the cloaked character, I said, the hooded character could easily have been the Rani. Now he's rewritten everything to make it all look neat. So this idea could pan out. I would, because I've been really finding it triggering this Fugitive Doctor arc that was set up by Chibnall without any explanation. I'd like it if the Fugitive Doctor, the disconnection was made, that she's from a different timeline, from the Timeless Child. Bingo. I could live with that. Although, by him doing that, he's affirming the Timeless Child, he's affirming the Fugitive Doctor, he's really bedding them into canon, isn't he?
Well, he's going to continue to try and find a way to bolster the Chibnall era. And I think if he does any tweaking and it reinforces the Chibnall run, it's going to antagonize your core audience in the first place. He's already lost the general audience. The normies are not out there watching this. You've got classic viewers who are basically checked out, and now you've got the new Who fans from 2005 to 2015 that are walking away in droves. Who is this for? Who is he going to placate by trying to reaffirm a failed run, which was the Whittaker era?
Right, I'm just typing for IFRS there. My advert for Saturday night, it's 11 p.m. is when we do the immediate reactions. I know you're going immediate reactions, but that would be straight across at 8 o'clock. The point is, I have transcripts. I have it all dovetailed. I know some people stream as soon as it finishes, as if, oh, aren't we clever? No. I put a shift in, and I think there's an awful lot of things we're going to have to say. So, yes, our immediate reactions when I've got us together, and we will go. I think, Christine, as long as we have to go, we will talk it all out. But normally, when you get to Who Night at 11 p.m., you will see transcripts, theories, and it's all been pulled together. It's not just a chat fest, which I know can happen in various places. So yes, at 11 p.m. Eye of Horus, and my God, will that be interesting? I think so. I'd combine into the Fugitive Doctor thing. There's the baby. Is that the future? Sorry, is that child there? The timeless child is therefore maybe the Fugitive Doctor or the mother of Susan. As he says, I have a daughter. Poppy's real. And I'm thinking, but it's Wish World. Oh, right, okay. So this has to have some payoff because otherwise he's a deluded idiot. What about this one then? And this, Cliff, you mentioned this. Jodie Whittaker, David Tennant, and Peter Capaldi all return, but not in film scenes, CGI flashback scenes, before they're regenerated to explain the twist ending. Here comes the twist ending, everyone. So, see how far Cliff got close to it. So, I'll go bigger here. Basically, the Doctor has already been to Wish World. Oh, I wish he hadn't. He was a wish made by Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. A few flashback scenes will be shown with Tennant saying, I don't want to go, with Capaldi seen also fighting back against his regeneration. So by the time it comes to Jodie's regeneration, basically, she went to Wish World and had her wish granted, so she got to be the Tennant Doctor one last time to meet Donna again, and when it was time to regenerate, he still got to be Tennant by just splitting into two and being two people at the same time. Are you still with me? One problem, though, is that this is all... one problem, my God. Let me just get rid of that, sorry. I love it when my machine doesn't listen. One problem, though, is this is all fictional, so basically the wish Jodie wanted is only temporary, a parallel world created around her. And it continues for a bit longer. Are you still with us on this one? Which World created, which explains Davros being different, the fourth wall breaking moments, that Indian guy playing Isaac Newton, and Mavity. This is all in the Doctor's mind, and the end scene will be Geordie's last words and the regeneration of hers, leaving an open ending. So basically, Tennant and Gatwa didn't exist. It was just some dream all along, which ruins two regenerations. The Dream Lord or the Toymaker or Meddling Monk was supposed to be responsible for the Doctor's false reality, but he chose in the end Omega instead. That's it in a nutshell. Now, this could all be gibberish because, let's face it, RTD isn't that creative. Lads, lots to discuss there. Over to you, Cliff, first, because, of course, you did think we might have to go back to Jodie's regeneration.
Yeah, and this aligns, except it doesn't include the Ronnie. It aligns with everything that I thought. I just think that it's not necessarily a dream in the truest sense, but it's part of how whatever modality that Ronnie's used to trap him. Remember, even the tool that he's using to get Belinda home. The name of it makes no sense because vindication is a justified retaliation, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the Ronnie knows what the device is, that means she planted it as well. There's things like that to me that are in this, that she's using the Doctor to get what she wants, and that's why she's grabbed him out of his timeline, created the bi generation so she can manipulate him better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I tend to approach this from, the true fan sense in me is that I don't want things undermined and destroyed. So I have to, like, in my head, I don't want to check out and not watch it ever again. I have to think that there's a payoff, and that he's somehow thought of a way to rectify all of these glitches and problems. And this scenario is the only one that, to me, that does it. To me, and it's not that it's in a false reality. It's in a false reality.
But just look at what I'm saying. None of this has been said yet. If this was true, right, in a 1 hour episode, I'm imagining my grandparent or somebody just sat there with their cup of tea, watching this episode of Doctor Who, thinking, "Oh, this should be fun," and then going, "Oh, hold on, I need a chart. Hold on, I need a map. Hold on, I need a genealogist."
That goes back to what I said before about RTD believing in his cleverness a lot more than believing in the show. He's gonna give us all something that's gonna just blow our minds, and that's all he's interested. He doesn't want to. I mean, quite honestly, when I was very young, I watched the when we finally did get the VHS out over here of the Aztecs. Guess what? I was blown away. Because that kind of trip, that kind of storytelling, wasn't something that was happening in American TV. Even the Sidney Newman premise of we'll do something sci-fi and then we'll do something historical it's now a lost opportunity. And I think once they get away from these, I'm so clever, I'm going to create this, mind-boggling result.
What I wanted to say about this is this. Right, okay, it's a plan if it's true. The trouble is, it's a plan that needed seeding much better by a better writer over 16 episodes. And so if he's written this down and it is a genius idea, it only has a genius payoff, Christian, if it's done a lot more work in each episode, and we haven't had some lazy ones like The Well or Lux that don't show us any of this. We needed a lot more explained, really.
Well, that's not his skill set. You have to remember, again, I go back to Empire of Death. There were a lot of plot holes that were established that were not resolved, which was part of the problem. And I tend to agree with Cliff. This is an interesting twist that would resolve a lot of questions, but I'm willing to bet that if that's the path he goes down, there will still be several plot holes that are gaping that he doesn't address that won't resonate with intelligent viewers. So I don't trust his integrity as a creative to land it effectively.
Yeah,
And
it's the same thing as with Sutek. He showed us a couple of shots of the sea. I've
yeah,
been here all along, but it wouldn't have
yeah.
worked out. It's the same thing
And
with
look,
Bad Wolf.
and
Bad
you
Wolf didn't have that
cannot,
same payoff either.
and you cannot. I actually think there should be a rule in Doctor Who and actually in TV now.
There
When you
was.
get to the series finales, if you're going to rely on flashback clips, then there's something wrong, because the flashback clips only work for those who've been watching all the way through. And I thought, RTD, you said you were the genius at making it accessible to the general public. And if you're sat there going, oh, yes, 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 no. And we've just had the Rani in flashback. We've just seen the doctors in flashback. And if this episode has loads of flashbacks, JNT always knew not to do too many. He did a bit in Mordrin Undead. That had a nice little payoff when the Brigadier was triggered. Logopolis. They then remastered it with Caves of Androzani. So basically it was just his companions and a new bit for Madrick and the Master. That was it. But please, if you overdo flashbacks, it becomes fan fiction and it becomes twaddle. So there you go, everybody. And I have to say, is there some kind of sick pleasure in this that actually he's thinking, all you fans who didn't like Geordie and everything, you all want this to happen because you'll be cheering seeing the Geordie Doctor again because it means we're going back to Bobby Ewing coming out the shower. There's a sickness there.
I contend that I didn't really mind Jodie's Doctor. What bothered me was her obvious disconnect in her performance. Right, the stories were okay. I mean, I'm not going to give them too much credit. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to, but it was the mandate that it was the lack of mandate that she study and find out who the Doctor is as a character, and then the one-off lines about women, women are better than men and all those other kind of weird things that happened. But I wouldn't mind if it connected back to Jodie. That's what's happened in Doctor Who for decades.
I'm just thinking,
If it's
Christian,
ham-fisted and it's not well thought out, and there's not
think,
enough substantiation, then you don't have narrative. Which
I'm
is the
just
whole point
thinking,
of storytelling.
Christian, that the issue with we had that bloody Destination Scarrow. This is how it all started. Now, is this, if it happens, any payoff at all to the Davros saga? That actually it was more of this a hocus pocus thing. I actually think that is bait. If this is true, it's actually some sick pleasure in baiting fans when it was so unnecessary. Okay, yeah, there's a hocus pocus in having a different Isaac Newton that's not white British and fourth wall breaks and the Mavity nonsense. But to tell Doctor Who fans that Davros now walks like some sort of Lazarus, no, I'm sorry, but you baited us. I wouldn't buy into that.
No, and that's part of the problem. RTD has to try and jump in this very last episode. He's managed to antagonize the people that give the show life, the viewers, the fans. These are the people that needed to be happy with what he's done, and instead, what he's done is trigger the audience in a very negative way. That's not going to pay positive dividends for him, and certainly not for the show. So again, I don't think this is going to be landed effectively because there
Unless
are a lot of hard feelings.
unless he thought, remember, I'm not defending him here. Unless his idea was, I'll get everybody, really well, which is a version of getting interest in it. It's just it hasn't paid off like that because Shooty opened his mouth and said, "Go and touch grass." Now, what about this one? What about this one? It just continues. So a lot of this has already happened. So basically, I'm just saying, in one of the leaks, Omega rocks up in the final. Well, yep. I'm just proving all these are true, but this is when it gets tasty. Okay. Susan appears at some point as a glass avatar. Yep. Go to the final paragraph. The Omega actually appears and has a CGI claw thing, and now says the Doctor regenerates and it fades to black. And there's a surprising figure that helps him do so, which people have interpreted as Geordie. It's unclear because originally he said he hadn't seen episode 8, the person who was leaking all the time. But now he says he's seen a screen of the full episode. But many people who work in the industry have pointed out that that wouldn't be a thing, so who knows? Well, I know John Yulden, and I've seen it, was saying Omega wasn't the claw thing, and it might be the gel guard. And of course, there's the rumor saying that. Anyway, you've got that bit, and then we've got, lads, the nonsense or not, that we will see a 16th Doctor, and the 16th Doctor will be, if you're allowed to talk about genders, a female. And is it Billy Piper? They said it was somebody who had been won an award at the BAFTAs and da 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 da. So they went down the list of people. You had to have been in Doctor Who and been at the BAFTAs. So they had Saran Jones, who obviously played the Doctor's wife, the TARDIS, Joanna Page, who played Elizabeth, Billy Piper, Anna Maxwell Martin, Rose Aileen Ellis, who was in The Well, Nicola Coughlan, who's now a star. And as you know, on the left there, I'm not going to read it out, but a lot of people have gone very heavily into this Billy Piper thing, that he might like the idea that the Doctor turns into... If the Doctor wanted to turn into David Tennant just to meet Donna again, then he might think, do you know what, I really liked Rose. In fact, I wouldn't mind being a bit of Rose. It would be a sick fantasy that you turn into your girlfriend. I mean, I don't know if this is really... I don't know. I hope this is absolute twaddle. What do you reckon?
I think it's twaddle to me. I have a hard time picturing it, but you also have to remember that if they show the face of a new Doctor, then they're going to be tied in to that. They're tying the hands of whoever might follow RTD if they bring in someone else, and they can't do that. So it feels like it's designed to generate chatter, but I don't know that this either will manifest. Am I mistaken?
To me, no. I'm sorry. Go on, Cliff. Your thoughts on this?
I can see there. If this person's really viewed as screener and stuff like that, and there's a mysterious female character, I would tend to believe, based on what we've seen so far, that it's somehow this avatar of Susan that's helping him regenerate. Now, we know he left Susan on Earth, locked the doors, left her there, because he knew that she needed to be human. She needed to be there with a person, with somebody who cared for her, and he wasn't going to be going through time and space and didn't want to risk endangering her, right? That was the premise of that. But I can also see that he's connected to the TARDIS, and this manifestation of Susan is just a connection back to reality. I don't know if that answers the question. I think that the twaddle is the best way to describe this litany of things.
Lovely. This is our lovely speculation on typically the eve of the eve, so to speak. But Joe Chapman here, who I'm going to write here now. My ex-husband is a beautiful man, big, tall, handsome Danish Viking, but I'm not going to regenerate into him. I know. I'm trying to find some logic to all this lot, because I think who sometimes is very dodgy anyway. This would be beyond the pale if he suddenly turned into Rose, for God's sake.
What we're balancing? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, last episode, Susan, the Doctor, and Randy, along with the Master, go to a drag show, and down the catwalk to right said Fred's "I'm too sexy." Thomas McCarthy, I think you've got the job for next series. I mean,
that's as likely as anything.
Yeah.
But I do like it. I do like the idea that, look, I think we can get a few truths here. If Jodie's CGI appears, and we go back to that, I'm okay. If Susan, who has suddenly appeared out of nowhere, willing her Doctor on, is there like Choji with the Planet of the Spiders, helping the Doctor regenerate, that's fine. The trouble is, it's a letdown. We had the Susan twist last year when we all wanted Susan back. We've waited another year, and actually, if the Susan re-emergence happens to be just going, "Go on, Doctor, change," it's like, oh, go away. So it wouldn't be a payoff for me. I'd be a right blooming letdown. But hello, I'm a Doctor Who fan. I'm getting used to that. So yes, Susan, she's there, or is she not there? It will explain a lot of things about when the Jodie Whittaker, when she was regenerating. Just before that, she sat on the TARDIS roof, hated it, with Yaz having an ice cream, hated it. Now we know that before she bought that ice cream, she went to Wish World and got a cornetto, and also said she. I mean, honestly, I don't want Big Finish will be all over this like a rash. Before you know it, we have the cornetto space wars. I don't want it. I don't want it. We have to sort out Mrs. Flood. Mrs. Flood, we need to see her have this sacrificed, non-regeneration. Here's more. Here's more theories. I mean, is everybody's heads get your paracetamols now? Here we go. Right. And I found this one. Maybe to bookend 15's first and last appearance, another nightclub dance. Hello, we showed this. But I don't think it's to do with regeneration. The real world could be starting up again, and they find themselves where they ought to be on the real May Day, having a party. Yeah, just enjoying themselves. And then Phoebe says she's back in this one. Belinda forgets the doctor and everything that happened because there's some sort of reset. Or never. And you know what? We've not had a reset for at least, I don't know, since the last. I've forgotten. It's all a blur. The resets blur my head. And he reintroduces himself. It sounds like a soap opera to me. Maybe Mayday was always going to happen, but when the Doctor, Ruby, and Belinda defeat the Rani and Omega, it's what it ought to be, a celebration. Like the Ewoks at the end of the Return of the Jedi. The thing is, Mayday is normally early May. So we said you can't get back to May the 24th. So what, we go back a few weeks and just have a nice little I don't know. I'm now bored. This stuff is now whatever. Who cares?
Well, no one cares. And look at the numbers. Look at the viewing figures. No one cares.
Really cares.
This
As a
doesn't
matter of
work.
fact, I would even probably say half of the people watching are those of us watching, so we can see what's wrong with it and report back to each other later. We're not watching it for the
It is. It does feel like we're doing some sort of sick watching of a car crash. I know. So there you go. That's I mean. And then somebody else threw in, Belinda's belief is what this reality depends on. And this is an implanted memory of her first meeting with John Smith in the nightclub. She sees what her life could be with him and rejects it to be a nurse to save somebody else's life. Oh, because the NHS is amazing. Are we going to do all that stuff?
It's possible.
So here
I
we
think
go.
that's
Now,
a good aftermath resolution. That they each get a choice. They each have their wish at the end.
So we've got the Geordie, maybe going back to Geordie. We've got all this lot. The other version is that he wants to sacrifice himself. It's the 15th Doctor, goes back to the David Tennant who sat in the garden with his gardening gloves on, doing a little excerpt with Talon Titchmarsh. The British viewers will get it. And while they're doing all that, he then embodies the David Tennant Doctor, so the David Tennant Doctor can regenerate, but it's an open-ended blah, blah, blah. And I'm talking like this because that's apparently what doctors do. Have you noticed that in finales? The doctor just goes, and there's lots of loud Maury Gold music. I'm only doing, it's very meta, this. Anyway, God. Here we go. Now, this is a link to Legend. Sorry, the Legend? What am I talking about? Right. The spoilers all over this, so to speak, that there is a season 3. He said he's written it. And this is how the spin-off links to it. And we will see the Master, according to this, in Saturday's episode. So here we go. The war between the land and the sea features the Master as the main character. And despite rumours to the contrary, the Master is Russell Tovey. He's kept locked up in the containment prison where several highly dangerous entities and creatures are imprisoned by UNIT. Well, we know. And his imprisonment is unknown to the Doctor, which will cause friction with Kate. Tovey, the Master, will first appear at the end of season 2, The Reality War, when Kate visits him. The Master reluctantly helps UNIT with the Sea Devils, so that's all the spin-off. Go to the bottom paragraph here, and there's a mention of season 3. Season 3, as planned, is in 2 separate halves and features the return of the Rani, Time Lords, and Omega, and the second half, the return of Davros and the Daleks, and as said, the Master. Davros unleashes a dark energy weapon which disengages the time lock of the Time War, and while it's closed by the Doctor and Master working together, an entity from the Time War escapes. And this is where the special would pick up, because it talks about them being a special. So, and Lee Smith has mentioned the secret project. There's so many things in this. Fascinating.
Headache.
Does it make sense? Are you happy with it?
Sadly for me, it no longer matters because I'm checked out. I'm helping do a forensic analysis of a decomposing corpse, but I don't have a vested interest in these plotline developments because even if they were executed brilliantly, it would take virtually a miracle to re-engage me and a lot of other people as a devoted follower of RTD's version of the show. So I think this is going to be an interesting plan, but I think it's fruitless at this point because I'm not sure that we're going to get anything past the war between land and sea. I think that's going to be the end of it.
And Cliff,
I do believe.
Just before you come in, Cliff, I wanted to lead into what you were going to say.
Yeah.
This, right, look at what we've talked about today. The Daleks might come back and capture him. The Master's back. The Rani's back. Omega's back. And I may be missing out. Sutek last year. This is just all the toys in the Doctor Who toy box. Where is this RTD moving forward? Where is this modernizing the show? Look, I as a fan could go, oh, the Master, oh, the Sea Devils, oh, but no, none of this should be happening. This is trying to make a Whoniverse Marvel universe, isn't it? This is just the nonsense that fans kind of he thinks wants. I just want good Doctor Who. I don't want spin-offs. I do you know what? If I could have better Doctor Who, I'd have said no to Sarah Jane Adventures. If I could have had more episodes of Doctor Who, I'd have said no to Torchwood. I'm sorry, I'm really strict on this. I'd rather have better Doctor Who, and instead of the Master and the Unit and the this and the that. So yes, it could all play in, but why the hell are we doing it, Cliff?
Well, that's in essence exactly my where I sit on it all. Also, right now we're not doing Doctor Who. Haven't been doing Doctor Who. Arguably, haven't been doing Doctor Who since 2005 because that was the. Bear with me just for a second. That was sort of the format reboot, right? We're going to do it in hour-long episodes. It'll all have a season-long payoff. Well, that's because we didn't have the social media platforms and streaming video and on-demand watching the show. You still had to tune in for it, right? I think that format is now passe. And what is when Doctor Who really worked, it worked in that episodic way. I mean, Dragon mentioned it before. So to some degree, I agree with this leak article, whatever it is. Mainly only in the sense that Russell has said there's two seasons, right? So he thinks of war between the land and the sea as part of Doctor Who, and it's all going to connect together. I think he's again full of himself and trying to link all this stuff, and that there could be a season 3 out there that he's written the basis for, and it's going to, potentially tie all of these things together. Whether or not the viewers are there for it, and whether the BBC understands that they're going to have to step in here and do a drastic recalibration and steering exercise to get the brand back on course. I don't know. I think a lot of things have happened. Just use Star Wars as an example. We got those last 3 movies, and they weren't for me really. I didn't like the direction it took everything in. But what sort of happened after that was Dave Filoni in his little cartoon show kept everything on track so that the brand would kind of stick to what had come before. I think that there's got to be somebody that's going to need to step up, and I don't think it's Russell Davies.
Yeah, and the middle paragraph there, just as a kind of parting shot, is the Master reluctantly helps Unit with the Sea Devils and is under extreme supervision. Well, yeah, he bonds with a female Sea Devil, and all I'll say is there's nothing wrong with having females in Doctor Who and all the rest of it, but when we've seen female Silurians, I think the problem has been the way they depict the female of these species. I'm not against having females in it, but you're used to just the sea devils being, what, I don't know, asexual. You're not used to, they're just a sea devil. But to then say, oh, there's a female sea devil and a male sea devil, I think it's taken us to a place we don't need to be. They're not male and they're not female. They're just sea devils. You know what I mean? I just,
Hmm.
the way we deal with it in sci-fi, I think is just going down another rabbit hole. I don't want the gender politics. Why do we need to know there's a female sea devil? Can we just have a bloody sea devil doing what sea devils do, sinking ships? That's all we want. So I'm perplexed about that. So here we go with our last section, which
Well,
is
the reason why is to make some kind of point, right? The reason why is to make a point in the storytelling.
so the last little section is, we're Doctor Who fans. If you had the same toys, now what I'm saying is not that in your fantasy of doing everything completely different. The starting point is the Jodie regeneration, and the starting point is you've got David Tennant booked, and you've got Catherine Tate booked for some specials. So we can't just reinvent the future. What should have happened when you have David Tennant, Catherine Tate, Disney's money for 2 seasons? What should they have done with Doctor Who? So that's what we're going to talk about now for a few moments, everybody. What really should have happened in our version of the show. There's some great comments in there. The female of the species, says Captain Mike, is more deadly than the male. We agree. So I know, you know what I'm saying. Just
Yeah.
don't poison our characters. Just don't bring gender into it. Leave it alone. Okay. So I've got lots of bits and bobs, but I'll leave that on the screen because, first of all, I'll give you a freebie, Christian. You have what I've just said, those toys. What would you have done, quite in a summary, with that and our version of Doctor Who?
Well, if I had Tennant, I would not have undone the Donna Noble arc because that was a terrible disservice to one of the stronger elements of the original RTD run. I don't think I would have wanted to play anything with meta. I would not want to redefine some of the characters. I do like the idea of a multi-doctor story, and the one doctor that we have not seen utilized effectively is Paul McGann. And I would have wanted to incorporate a single story with McGann as a part of the narrative to affect. Even if we don't go back and undo the Timeless Children and some of the worst elements of the Whittaker arc, certain things like the flux still needed to be resolved. And so I try and use that 60th anniversary with Tennant present to solve some of the holes left at the end of the Whittaker era to do justice to the show moving forward. And then I would have had a new generation and a new doctor come in after that. So that's kind of how I'm feeling at this point.
Eye of Horus Cliff says Tate and Tennant revisiting a very young Wilf, Mott, in the Second World War, and how the Master attempts to kidnap Wilf to change his history is where Eye of Horus would go. Sounds like a Doctor Who episode to me. Gosh, is that allowed? Cliff, what were your thoughts on what you could have done with the same toys as RTD started with?
Assuming that it all ends exactly that way, that the Tenant Doctor comes, well, who else did we see there? We see the other surviving doctors, right? So after that regeneration, the 10th Doctor says, what? The next episode begins with him realizing he has to take the TARDIS and find Gallifrey, rectify what's happened, and he has the help of the other doctors. There's your flipping anniversary. I mean, you bring back the legacy of it. You do something that sets everything right, and get back to establishing some of the rules. We talked about that in that other
Yeah.
cast where you need the rules, you need the web of time, you need, you can't change one line. You need some of the structure that was in the basis, and the only way to do that is to have the Doctor realize he has to get back and set some things right. That's what I would have done with it, and then at the end of all that, possibly go ahead and regenerate into Ncuti, but no dance clubs, no nightclubs.
It feels a shame that what he did do is he's kind of used those 3 specials with 2 established Doctor Who stars to actually set up Ncuti's fantasy 2 seasons that might have payoff with the Timeless Children and everything else. And you've wasted the specials. Look at what Stephen Moffat did with Day of the Doctor, when you actually even introduced Capaldi early and all the rest of it. Now, we're all using AI and Grok and everything. You can't read that here, but we asked Grok, and we just said, if you had full creative control of Doctor Who, how would you relaunch the show in a way that brought back apathetic fans? Which, yeah, I think that's a fair enough question. The answers were here, right? So if I just said the answers were, what would you have done with everything RTD had? Right. Once you've done the specials, you introduce an unpredictable Doctor, older Doctor, who's a haunted figure. The plots have no messaging at all. This is the Grok. The program and the stories have a sharp edge to them. The companion is somebody like an ex-soldier, right? No narrative arcs. It stipulates no arcs at all. Every story should be separate and just high on jeopardy, high on eerie atmosphere, physical effects and less CGI, a kind of rugged steampunk TARDIS, a much darker tone with some funny moments, because Doctor Who always had funny moments with jelly babies or something, and minimize trailers, minimize all the spoilers, minimize all this hype, make it a mystery again, make it an event TV. Would you buy into that?
Absolutely.
I would.
I would even say make the story length unpredictable. Don't telegraph whether it's going to end in one episode or not.
Yeah.
You don't even know. You don't know if they're going to get out of this in one episode or it's going to take 4.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Now, we've got a few ideas here, and then I'll come to Jess as well. Mr. Squinty Mint, I'd have commissioned a far more modest TARDIS interior. Yes. It's not being used. And focus the money on world building and monsters. Yes. I wouldn't have had a season with hardly any monsters. Yes. Do you want to be showrunner? You know what Doctor Who should be. Joe Chapman, Tennant stayed Doctor, uses the special ability of the TARDIS to solve a war on another planet by tricking them to think they're on the planet to hash out a battle, but they're not. Always happening in the TARDIS. Let's have a look. Now, thank you, Jess. Very generous. Thank you very much. Not for me. Mind you, I'm having loads of tea anyway. Tea and biscuits for the Who pets. Ready for the weekend. I know they're going to be up. Well, I hope they're going to be busy. You never know. People might not tune into our channel, but thank you very much.
Yeah!
They're dead. Actually, if I just change the angle there could be like Rose going in Doomsday, Doctor, oh my God. And she goes flying into, let's just look at that again and just imagine them being Rose and dying and going into a parallel universe.
Yeah!
Yeah. And just the shot you can't see is there's a big fan and they get chopped up,
Oh, well, that's a way to get fired. That's a way to get sacked.
Well, that's it. I mean, we've got to cut back on costs, Jess. So basically, some of the Who pets have to be made unemployed or eliminated. So maybe some big fan yeah, we're going to have cliffhangers where some of them do die. Sorry about that. Alfie Jack, Capaldi went back to Gallifrey's past in Listen, so I would have taken Tennant and Tape back to Gallifrey's earlier days. I think this is the Marmite bit, so good on you, Alfie Jack. Maybe I'm just a different type of fan where I'm scared of us going too far into Gallifrey. I know it's tempting, But every time we touch Gallifrey since Deadly Assassin, I think we've spoilt it. You know,
It's very hard to do Gallifrey justice, because as long as it remains a mystery, the culture, the way a Time Lord is selected, the actual backstory of the Doctor, the mystery is there. Everyone has some perception of it in their mind, and you're okay. But the moment you define it, you're going to do two things. One is you're going to protect it if it's well done as a form of canon, but the other is you're going to lose the mystery of it. What do they say about monsters? It's not seeing the monster that's more stressful and tension inducing than witnessing it. If you go back and you define Gallifrey, guess what? You've taken away some of that mystery.
yeah, well, I mean, for example, after Saturday, yes, you'll wonder what some of the streamers do. I've got Julie Coonan and others saying, "Oh, well, what will Brendan do next?" Well, I'm already preparing my love letter to Doctor Who in lots of mini swords. So, for example, my joining on point to Doctor Who was the Sea Devils, as I've said many times. And what you've just said, Christian, about what Doctor Who should be and the monsters, the Sea Devils was a rare one, and I'm going to show clips, and I'm going to do my affection for that story and other stories in my Doctor Who experience as nice little kind of videos, and hopefully people will join us for them. But to your point, part 1 and 2 of Sea Devils are my parts. After that, yeah, it's all right. But part 1 and 2, to see a Sea Devil in a shadow under the stairs, oh my God. To see a pterodactyl's hand for a moment in Visitation, oh my God. In the Zygon, in the Terror of the Zygons, to just hear their whisper going, that's wow! And to play with the spaghetti hula hoops on their spaceship panel. That's all I needed. We don't need to see them doing a dance under a mirror ball and then they're going, do you know what? I had sex with your father. What the hell's all that about? It's just, I just don't get it at all. Paul Ashworth, you see, this is what you know. Christian's also a teacher, and we know what happens when the class is about to finish. You know, anyway, super sticker. Thank you very much. Peer character exaggeratedly stretching his arm forward to offer a cup of coffee. Ah, there you go. And then you hit the blades and it gets chopped up where the hoopets are. Paul, you've got to be careful there because you could get caught in those rotor blades. The snag is Garbage, our moderator. Thank you, Garbage. Thank him as well. We need him around. He's a good lad. I send him photographs and he makes them for me. He saves me a lot of time. I appreciate it. And we need more. We need more.
I thought you were working on a Disney budget now.
I know. We've started something, as they say. We've really started something. So have we missed out something that we really need in the version of Doctor Who that fans really want? Jess here says, you have to have oversight that covers Time Lord lore, canon, characters, scenarios, and a source writers can reference. Jess, I fully agree. In fact, in one of our previous streams, we actually said, well, I said, Cliff, didn't I? We need to buy a few years. We go back to McGann for a little while, as an example. And then we buy a few years where we hire writers who are sci-fi writers. And yeah, whoever the showrunners oversees it. But in those years, they have specific tasks. And one of them would be to kind of work out the Doctor Who universe regarding where the Sontarans, Cybermen and Daleks really fit. Not every monster. I couldn't give us stuff where the Monoptera are, and the Nine-Man can go and kind of play with themselves. No, I mean the main ones, you know? So basically, that sort of thing. Obviously, the creature from the pit, I need to know where he fits in. But yeah, I think that makes sense, yes. And then, of course, they can dovetail that to writing some blooming scripts. And because they're researching Doctor Who to get the lore kind of right. I'm not going to be a perfectionist, but if they can just kind of make a bit of sense for us, then a new writer, new blood, can come in and go, let's have a look. I'm going to do the Sontarans, and then go, oh, right, oh, okay. So the Sontarans, because I still don't understand how the Sontarans can clone themselves so quickly, and yet we're not seeing them all over the universe under bins and everywhere. I mean, they're like a parasite, surely, because they'll be breeding so fast.
Well, I love Jess's observation here, because that's exactly what they have to do. And your previous show really illustrated that point. If you create a series Bible that has to be adhered to by any writers coming in, whoever the producer is, they're going to be very familiar with this Bible front and back. And any writers worth their salt who are good at science fiction stories come in, have to be familiar with that construct, and anything they create must adhere to it. If that happens, you're actually world building, and that's something true fans appreciate, because it creates consistency and it allows for suspension of disbelief. You can actually engage with it. This is a real universe. What we're getting right now doesn't have that sense.
I would even be in favor of a living Bible, a living canon that can be added to, but it's got to align with a certain amount of criteria. So that gives people some creativity to develop new bits of Gallifrey later on. But we're definitely not changing these other bits.
No,
Exactly.
Lee Smith. You see, they're all sneaky devils. They saw me mention with John the pillar talk. The pillars and my obsession with pillars. And now they're talking about the horns of Naimon and whether they're horny. I know I've opened up another can of worms. You can't make me the showrunner, because I'd cause chaos. Look, lads, we've had a lovely 2 hours speculating, hypothesizing, waffling. No, we've never waffled. And thinking of all the scary possibilities. There is a glimmer of hope. That it's like threading through the eye of a needle. If he just gets it right, we could save Doctor Who. When we see each other again on Saturday night, will we be weeping? Will we be weeping angels? Will we be celebrating? Will we? Oh my God. Do you know what? The thing about being a Doctor Who fan is we know we can guarantee in 2 days we're going to be talking and we're going to be passionate. And I keep saying one day I'm going to have a rest and not do a stream. But I think after the series is finished, I'm going to have so many issues and arguments that I'm going to be streaming like a hay fever sufferer. It'll be crazy. So everybody, thanks for your time. If this has been a Dallas and Texas and Houston special. So thank you, you Lone Stars. Thank you very much. It's been fun because we're Doctor Who fans and this is what we do. Thanks for joining us in the thread, everybody. Thanks for oh yes, and before we go, I am a nibble away from 1,700 subscribers. Get your granny to blooming sign. No, tell a friend. Check you have subscribed, because there's some sneaky devils lurking, waiting for me to up my quality. Oh, I know where you live. Just get us to 1,700 subscribers and I'll shut my face and I'll have another blooming biscuit. Everybody, come on then. Saturday night, 11 o'clock. Will we be happy or sad? Oh, I just can't wait. See you, lad.